I'd call this meeting to order at 7:03 p.m. on April 15th, 2024. So first I'll do the roll call. I am the chair, Luke Marusiak, Vice Chair Tessman,
Present.
Commissioner Kilcup. See her yet. Commissioner Crone,
Present.
Commissioner Smith.
Here.
Okay, and we received a notification that Commissioner Aliff and Commissioner Lambert will not be in attendance. I believe Commissioner Kilcup will join us, so let's proceed and we'll circle back if we need to. So first, are there any public comment? Public comment, will we accept in-person attendees for any items not on the agenda? Okay, at this point, just to comment on the current agenda, I think it is just would move that we amend number 2, the public hearing emergency housing, to just put a dash there, and after emergency housing, just add House Bill 1220 code amendments, just for clarification. And then I move that we approve the agenda as amended. Can I get a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
The agenda is approved as amended. That was just for clarification. So we move on to the council liaison report.
Greetings, commissioners. This is going to be a little bit of an abbreviated address because I've been traveling for the last week, so I missed the last council meeting, and I certainly don't want to speak out of turn for things I wasn't there for. So just a couple of things I want to make sure that you folks are aware of is that as we continue to fill in those last few positions that were still empty, due to all the things that were fallout from the COVID stuff, we finally have a information technology director. Oh boy, La Flèche LaCroix. I don't know. Was it LaCroix? Okay, Director LaCroix, and we also have a Parks and Public Works director, official. Jeff Hamlin. He's been the acting Public Works Director for some time now, and now is the official Public Works Director. And then the only other thing that I wanted to note was just to make sure that we're all aware that Snoqualmie Ice Cream, Chickadee Bakery, Snoqualmie Pie Company, and Little Wishes Photography unfortunately experienced a massive fire downtown. And that building, I believe, is one of the historic buildings, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, it is. Yeah. So, I don't have any information as far as how extensive the damage is. Are they going to have to tear the whole thing down and rebuild, or is it something they could patch up? What time that would take? I don't have any information like that, but certainly it's a hardship for those businesses. And I'm sure that the community is going to come forward and be as supportive as they can as opportunities are available. When we know more, I'm sure that information will be forthcoming. Still in the early days, anyway, of the event. I don't really have anything else to say other than be happy to take any questions. Again, I've been gone for the last week or so, so I'm still kind of getting all caught up again. But yeah, I'd be happy to take any questions.
Okay, let me just do a quick roundtable. First, let me note that Commissioner Kilcup is present. So doing quick, Vice Chair Tessman, any questions?
Since Councilmember Johnson's been out, I'll save my hard questions for next time. So no questions.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Commissioner Kilcup, any questions?
No questions.
Commissioner Crone?
No questions. Thanks.
Mr. Smith?
Nope, not this week. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, so I've got one, and I would have brought it up last time. I noticed on the Snoqualmie Tribe website that on February 2nd, they announced they were going to start selling cannabis. And then on February 26th, they had actually opened directs to go ahead and do that. And so I just had a few questions about that. Specifically, Is that limited to the casino? Would be one. And then just a kind of a technical question, the THC content in cannabis, like when we were growing up was single digit, like 6-8%. And now it's a lot. It's like 2 or 3 times more than that. Just how potent is the cannabis that they intend to sell? So,
wish I
and
knew
the
the
reason I
second.
ask that is supposedly, according to their website, they made notification that they were going to do that. Any comments?
I believe that became public knowledge not long before that official announcement that they were going to be moving in that direction. So it was, to my knowledge, it was a somewhat sudden thing that it came up. And I believe that is going to be on their land. I don't believe that any sales are going to be happening within the city of Snoqualmie. I think we have an ordinance about where we can open those and stuff anyway. Yeah, that's what I thought. Yeah, so we have an ordinance against it anyway. But if it's on their land, which is it is in the UGA, kind of oddly enough, but we have not annexed that land. So yeah, it is within their land. And as far as the second question, I have no idea what levels of THC they might be selling. Yeah, it's definitely different from what it used to be.
Yeah. The reason I bring that up is that after a certain percentage, there's a real high percentage of kids who get addicted if it's above a certain level of THC. That's why I'd asked. But you say their land, you mean the reservation? So it's not
I
going to be.
believe that it's on the reservation.
It's not going to be at the gift shop down by the falls or anything.
I don't think so, but I will double check to make sure.
Yeah, I certainly think we should ask, just because a number of years ago, we wrestled with this when North Bend and others did it. We did not want it anywhere around Snoqualmie, so it's a concern. So I just thought I'd highlight that.
Well, thank you. Yeah, and I'll double check to see, but I believe that it's only going to be on the reservation.
Okay, that was all I had. I know that was a hard question, but I wanted to get it out there. Okay. Thank you. At this point, I move that we approve the minutes dated March 18th, 2024 as written. Can I get a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, minutes are approved. And now we move into the public hearing on emergency housing - House Bill 1220 code amendments. So question to staff, has staff received any input from the citizens? Okay, and I don't see, let me see, do I see anybody? I don't see anybody on the Zoom right now. So I'll tell you what, let's go through the House Bill 2020 code amendments, and I'll see if anybody's showing up. If not, we'll open and then close the public hearing to make sure there's opportunity to do that. So why don't we move on to the House Bill 2020 code amendments presentation.
Good evening. My name's Andrew Levins. It's nice to see you guys in person for the first time here. Tonight, I wanted to talk to you about, give you the background for House Bill 1220, as well as just kind of some procedural items that we uncovered as we were researching and developing this text. The Snoqualmie Municipal Code requires for city-initiated amendments that the Planning Commission or City Council issue a resolution of intent to study and process a text amendment to the code. So I just wanted to flag that for you. I'm not sure it's something that's been done in practice in the past. And so as a result, we're going to go ahead. Well, our thought is that we would like to go ahead and kind of do this all at this meeting. So if we could just get, I guess, your verbal confirmation that that the Planning Commission is all right with issuing that resolution of intent to study this code amendment for HB 1220, as well as a future code amendment that the Community Development Director has asked me to help process SB 55290.
So let me just make sure everybody understands the background. I discussed this with Community Development Director Arteche. I'm not sure if everybody's aware, but the state passed House Bill 2020 and said basically everybody needs to accommodate the transitional and supportive housing code updates, and we have not done so yet. So there are numerous areas of the SMC that are inconsistent with HB 1220. So that's what this is about. And what you're saying is we need to go ahead and get our code consistent with HB 1220, which is actually a state mandate. Is that a fair?
That's correct. But just as a matter of procedure, the Planning Commission has to formally issue a resolution of intent that it's going to study and process these amendments. Because that hasn't been done yet, we wanted to introduce that to you and just get your confirmation that you're okay with that moving forward. So it's kind of this is a housekeeping thing that.
Okay, so you want me to do that right now so that you can go through it right now?
That's correct.
Oh, okay. Then I move that we introduce an amendment to study the House Bill 2020 Transitional and Supportive Housing Code updates to the SMC. Can I get a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, please proceed. Please proceed.
Thank you for that. So the background on HB 1220 is that the state in 2021 passed a requirement that cities throughout Washington add certain types of supportive housing uses to their code. It is not an indictment on the current content of our code or anything of that nature. It's really just establishing a floor for these types of uses in the state and ensuring that there's appropriate provisions statewide for these types of supportive housing uses. So this is the materials that I have prepared for you today kind of outline our approach to achieving consistency with the requirements of House Bill 1220. So in attachment 1 or exhibit 1, I don't know if you can put that on the screen. So we created this matrix to kind of demonstrate and analyze the portions of the municipal code that required updates in order to be compliant with HB 1220. So I'll just, if you are okay with it, I'd just like to run through it and kind of describe each requirement and then what is being added to the code.
Okay.
So one of the requirements of HB 1220 is that all cities must add the definitions of emergency housing and emergency housing into their code. And it's also, all cities must also add the definition of emergency shelter into its code. So that's the first two rows there on this table. Because Snoqualmie is a relatively small city, and in practice, we would expect to see these uses kind of combined, we've opted to streamline the definition and combine it into emergency housing or shelter. And we've confirmed with the Department of Commerce that this is an acceptable approach. So in order to be consistent with that, we would just add that definition into the code, into the definition section. Same thing for permanent supportive housing, because this specific definition is not currently in the code. We have to add it in order to be compliant. Transitional housing, in that fourth row there, the city had already had a definition for transitional housing in its code. So we would propose to modify that definition to be compliant with the definition that the Department of Commerce has created for cities statewide. And then in the fifth row, oh, I'm sorry, I got them a little mixed up there. In the fourth row, we have the existing definition of special needs housing, which includes the definition of a transitional housing. Because transitional housing is now its own discrete use, we're going to pull that out of the definition of special needs housing just to make sure there's no conflicts between future interpretations of these uses. And then the last three rows there are just modifying the land use table to add these uses as defined by commerce to the city's code and allow them in zones where we are required by state law. So emergency shelter and housing, because of the type of impacts you could expect to see with that and that type of use, and also kind of the built form we would expect to see, maybe like a more dormitory or hotel style building that would be allowed in all zones where hotels are allowed. Whereas with permanent supportive housing and transitional housing, those uses would take or would retain a more traditional residential character and take the form as and might be indistinguishable from existing single family homes or apartment buildings. So those are required to be allowed in all zones where current multifamily housing or motels are allowed. So that's this matrix here. And the attachment 2 is the,
Hold on a second, just,
yeah.
Let me just poll the commission very quickly. Are there any comments or points of clarification on this page? I'll do a quick poll. Vice Chair Tessman?
I didn't get a chance to read the full packet, so it might be forthcoming. But I just want to make sure I get it. This says we don't have emergency housing in the code. We don't have transitional housing in the code. Got it. However, if we accept the need to make those modifications, do we still control the actual process of defining those things, or is this just a step on the way to accepting a state mandated definition?
It's a little bit of both. The state requires that these definitions have certain check certain boxes, meet certain criteria. And so in our definitions that we've added, there are certain aspects of them that we could not modify to be more restrictive. If we wanted to modify them to be less restrictive, the state would likely be fine with that. But what we've done is incorporate their definitions with the characteristics that they've required as they've required them. So we haven't really broadened or restricted their definition in any way, with the exception of emergency housing and emergency shelter. Like I said, we just combined those definitions, but otherwise they're almost the same as the state had proposed them.
Okay, so as we review those reflect all the essentially minimum requirements of the definition as dictated by the state.
Yes, that's correct.
Thank you.
Okay. Commissioner Kilcup, any questions or points of clarification?
No, thank you, but those were great questions, Vice Chair Tessman.
Commissioner Crone?
No further clarification. Thank you for the summary. It's really helpful.
Commissioner Smith?
Not yet, not yet.
Okay, yeah, likewise, I'm good at this point. I agree, those are good questions. Vice Chair Tessman. Okay, let's move on.
So originally this item 2, or the attachment 2, was showing some strike through and underline, but it looks like all those changes were accepted in this version that's made its way to you. So what you're looking at here is the text as it would be incorporated into the municipal code. I'm happy to talk through any of this, any of these definitions or modifications to the land use table, but I also think that we've covered them in our discussion of the matrix. But happy to answer any further questions regarding that.
Okay, keep scrolling down. Is there more after this?
There are no more attachments, but I would just describe what the next steps are for the Planning Commission. So this is oh, I'm sorry, I did not hear you there.
The table of uses.
Yeah, so in this table of uses, you'll see where In item, it's section 1. We've added it's under special needs housing. So it's the uses 1.3.4 through uses 1.3.6. Those uses have been added to the use table as a permitted use in the zones that they are required to be so by the state.
Okay, so all this is consistent with your analysis and the definitions, and these updates align consistently with what the state mandates.
That's correct. We've been in conversations with the Department of Commerce, who's kind of the implementing body for this, and they've confirmed that these text amendments as proposed are acceptable from the state perspective.
Okay.
Yeah, so Ashley's found the strikeout version. If that would be helpful to look at, we can
I think it'd be helpful.
walk
yes.
through it. So here you'll see under E and P definitions, it's essentially it's just all new text. This is new definition that's written to meet the requirements of the state law. We're proposing modifications to the S definition of supportive special needs housing, excuse me, just to remove the reference to transitional housing facilities to eliminate any future confusion if this is ever requires interpretation. So you'll see right below there, the city had already defined transitional housing facilities, but that definition was not necessarily consistent with the new requirements. So we're pulling it out of special needs housing and revising the existing definition to be aligned with what is required by the state.
Oh, wait. Yeah, so, okay, so we added the parts where we had no definition. Okay.
Yeah, and so these are just the terms that we've just defined. We're adding them as uses to the land use table, and the zones that they are allowed in. Again, for emergency or housing or shelter, you can see that's a little more limited. That's only going to be allowed or permitted uses in zones where hotels are currently allowed, whereas permanent supportive housing and transitional housing are permitted uses in any zone where multifamily uses are currently allowed. I think that is all of the strike through and underline text.
Good. That's very helpful. That's very helpful. So I'll do a poll one last time. If there's any comments, after that, I will open up a public hearing now that we've covered all this and this has been actually put out ahead of time. But first, any additional comments, questions of Vice Chair Tessman?
No, not right now. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, Commissioner Kilcup,
No more questions from me here now.
Commissioner Crone,
No, and thank you.
Commissioner Smith.
Now at the moment, thank you.
At this point, the next part is the public hearing portion of our meeting. And this is one public hearing this evening, which is what we've covered. House Bill 2020 Transitional and Supportive Housing Code Updates. I will now open the public hearing at 7:27 p.m. And I'll see nobody in the council chambers. Staff has received no email. Is that still the case? And I see no attendees with their hand up on Zoom. So at this point, we have no speakers, and I believe everyone has had an opportunity to speak, particularly since I've delayed calling this. So I'll declare the Planning Commission's public hearing on House Bill 2012-20 Transitional and Supportive Housing Code Updates closed at 7:28 PM. Okay. At this point, we move on to agenda item number 3, the muffed amendment. Multiple use plan amendment.
Yeah, the mixed use final plan amendments.
Yeah. So go ahead.
So this is really just a staff status update. This one has been kind of a long time in the making and we wanted to keep it on your radar. But we have not finalized text amendments to the Snoqualmie Ridge 1 mixed use final plan as of yet. However, we are in the process of renoticing as we almost out of an abundance of caution, just to make sure we're being consistent with every provision of the municipal code. Previously, we had considered this a site or not a site specific decision, which has a different noticing process than a site specific decision does. But ultimately, since it is an amendment that will affect just a singular area within the city, we did decide to use the site specific noticing process and are currently in the process of performing that notice. And the end of the public comment period would coincide well with the I believe it's the May 6th Planning Commission meeting. So at that time, we're tentatively recommending that the Planning Commission hold an open record hearing then to discuss the amendments.
And the summary of what we're trying to do is have clarity with how we can address these area, because right now we're using waivers and things like that.
That's correct. So the way Snoqualmie Ridge these conditions were written were very helpful when the ridge was initially developed, but might not have considered how the area would continue to need to be managed by the city 30 years down the line where we find ourselves now. So some of these conditions have to do with how amendments are processed to the mixed use final plan that's governing development in Snoqualmie Ridge 1. And we are proposing to modify these conditions to increase procedural clarity, which will allow us at a later date, sometime soon, to propose amendments to the mixed use final plan that will ultimately expand the types of retail uses that are allowed in the neighborhood center up there on the ridge. So right now, this is kind of step 1 of a 2-step process. It's just laying the groundwork and allowing these amendments to be processed in a way that's clearly consistent with what is required. Because right now, what's required is kind of, in some ways, it would conflict with how these amendments would need to be processed.
And this is Center Street, primarily the Center Street retail area?
That's correct, yeah. Center Boulevard, Center Street. That's correct.
Yeah, yeah, Center, yeah.
Mm.
Okay. Well, since you have introduced that, let me find out if the planning commissioner has any questions or comments. As this is an introduction, we have a public hearing on this next planning commission, right?
That's correct, on May 6th.
Okay.
Is when it's currently scheduled.
So then, again, let me do the round robin here. Vice Chair Testman, any comments, questions?
No questions.
Okay, Commissioner Kilcup,
No questions.
Commissioner Crone,
None for me. Thank you.
Commissioner Smith.
Nope, not at this time.
Okay, likewise, I think I understand what we're trying to do here. So I have no further questions. So we all should make sure we review the packet before May 6th, or at least a couple hours before we have the
That's
meeting.
correct, yeah.
And we will have the public hearing on May 6th. Yes.
I would before we conclude this portion of the meeting, I would just, I think we need to formalize the recommendation on the first item that we were discussing, HB 1220. So as a Category 3 decision, the Planning Commission makes a decision or makes a recommendation to council. And so I think that you need to have a vote to recommend this item to council
Okay.
one way or the other.
No, absolutely. Thank you. So just a segue here. I move that we approve the House Bill 1220 Transitional and Supportive Housing Code Amendments as presented in Planning Commission April 15th, 2024. Can I get a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you for that. Thank you.
And unless anybody has any questions about House Bill 1220 or future amendments to the mixed use final plan, I think that concludes everything that I had to present here tonight.
Okay. I was just going around and so everybody was fine. So yeah, we'll again take a look at the updated packet prior to May 6th, and we'll I'll usually, if anybody's out there, have the public hearing before, but I thought it was good on this one to do it after, and then we'll do the same thing. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, at this point, we move on to items of planning commissioner interest. So same technique, Vice Chair Testman, any items?
I just, it's been a crazy week for Snoqualmie. I just want to thank Snoqualmie Police, for, and all supporting agencies for dealing with the, stolen vehicle last week. And then, I want to thank, obviously the, firefighters, paramedics, and police for the work on responding to, the Snoqualmie ice cream fire. And then I guess I would close by saying I'm really proud of Snoqualmie for coming together to support those businesses. There's a GoFundMe and it's almost hit its goal of $50,000. So that's spectacular. And that's all I have.
No, great comments. Good. Commissioner Kilcup?
No comments, but I will second what Vice Chair Testman just said. That was lovely.
Okay. We'll have to change the order up so he doesn't get first mover on all these. Commissioner Crone?
I echo that. I love the sentiment. Thank you, but no comments from me.
Okay. Commissioner Smith?
Trying to think of any updates that I had, but I didn't have anything written down and hadn't any come to mind either.
Okay. I have one question. I'm not sure if staff is available, but have they started work on the splash park?
Admittedly, I don't know too much about this, but yes, they have started working on that. I believe there is going to be kind of some accommodations made for with traffic, considering just like the
Well, you've
area
got
that
the
all
one, you've
takes
got
up.
Cascade right there, right? Yeah.
So there's been some concern about kids getting to school as far as I'm aware. But from what I know, the city is trying to best address that now that the splash pad construction has started.
Yeah. And when's it going to be complete? I don't recall the target time.
I don't know that answer,
Hopefully
unfortunately.
ready for this summer. Hopefully they don't build it and
I think
commission
that,
it in October. That
I
would
think
be
that's the
bad.
hope, is they want to be able to use it this summer, but I don't know the actual direct timeline.
Okay. Okay. And are they using and also just for future, if they're using recycled water? Just as a question.
I also don't know the answer to that. If you would like, I can follow up with Parks and Public Works.
Yeah, let's just call it a splash park update.
Okay.
For next meeting.
Bring an update for next meeting?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So then we move into the upcoming schedule, future agenda list.
Alrighty, so here's the future agenda list. Unfortunately, since our April meeting was canceled, I had asked Dylan to come for a river trail update, but this meeting he was busy and he wasn't able to come. So even though it is on the future agenda list for today, I'm hoping he can come in the next couple meetings to give you a comprehensive update with that. So that will be moved. And then as you also see, the mixed use final plan amendment public hearing will be on the next meeting. And then hopefully we will be getting into the climate change intro here soon, now that we have grant funding in place. We've signed the contract, so we can get going with that one.
In a historic downtown on May 20th.
I believe this is relating to the proposed code amendments for retail.
I don't think so. I think, I could be wrong, but I believe this is, the planning commission will act as basically design review in the historic downtown is basically a second role at the planning commission. And the thought was it'd be good to understand what King County is doing, particularly now, since obviously there's going to be some renovation down there. I think it's perfect to go through that as to what, what rules are in historic downtown for things like a renovation. I think this is the
Mm,
perfect time to go
yeah.
look at that.
Emily is on this meeting. Emily, could you speak more to that?
Yeah, sure. Ashley, you were right. There is a proposed code amendment for the historic downtown. It somewhat mimics the mixed-use final plan proposed amendments that are forthcoming with Center Boulevard. So these were amendments that were proposed last year by the EDC. They haven't had a chance to fully discuss the amendments, and it's anticipated that they'll get to that at their meeting on the 17th. If they do get to that meeting and they do move forward with the historic downtown code amendments, it could come to planning commission on the 20th. But I'd be also happy to provide more information on what you just asked for regarding King County and the Historic Preservation Office, and what rules are in place in order to do historic design review.
Well, I think that'd be good. I know in the past you've mentioned that to me, that, there's a lot that basically King County is doing, and we've been, it's been a while since we've actually educated the planning commissioner, talked about it. So I think it'd be good if we do a little introduction to what, how we handle historic downtown. When
Yeah.
they builds, or in the case which is coming up, renovation. So I hope you're someplace fun.
I'm in Minnesota right now.
Well, that doesn't sound very fun.
Yeah, it's been about 70 degrees and I'm at the American Planning Association conference. So I've been learning all about life above the ground floor. Above street level, there's a whole life of retail and services that are provided through their sky bridges. It's been very interesting to be here at the conference.
Okay, cool. Good. All right. Well, thanks. Well, thanks for clarifying that. I do appreciate that.
Yeah, you're welcome.
And then next agenda item, a work program. So we've got Community Development Director Artechi, since you were just chatting, did you want to talk a little bit about the climate change element?
Yeah, the city's recently received grant money from the Department of Commerce to take steps forward to create the last and final part of the comprehensive plan, which would be the climate change element. It is a more robust element than any of the other elements thus far. It's likely that we'll be able to start on that late this third quarter or early or mid third quarter. It is a rigorous process where we will be looking at greenhouse gas reduction and vehicle miles traveled, an extensive public involvement program, and of course, a similar process with introduction of goals and policies for your review and consideration.
Yeah, very good. Different from the environmental element is, I mean, although it's somewhat connected, this is relatively new, and we're going to see if we can tackle this, hopefully as much as we can this year. So, okay, very good. Anything else to call out on the future work program?
It's interestingly enough, this climate change element also offers the opportunity for the commission to review best available science, if you recall those buzzwords from our environmental element work, and critical areas update, including flood improvement permit update. So since those are all interrelated, the Department of Commerce has encouraged us to take a much broader look at our development code as we update and review climate change policies and related, development code implementation.
Okay, okay. And just a comment, the item after that, that's where I was a bit confused, I guess, where the Historic Design Review Board training, that's what I thought we were actually talking about with that agenda item. So now I understand it's a different.
Yeah. We can move forward with that. The Historic Preservation Office at King County has reached out several times and encouraged me to find a time or a set of times in meetings, various meetings, to allow the commission to be refreshed on those rules and regulations and just become familiar with the other part of your roles and responsibilities, which are Historic Design Review Board.
Okay, looks like a full year, actually. Okay, good. All right, thank you. Thank you. All right. Are there any other comments or questions? Look for a raised hand. Seeing none, at that point, I move that we adjourn this meeting at 7:45 PM on April 15th, tax day 2024. Can I get a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, everybody.
Good night.
Thanks all.
Good night.
Evening.
Good night.
Aye.